Hi, this is Matt Coddington with MyMobileville, and this is a look at the Verizon Droid RAZR HD. This is a follow-up to the RAZR line from last year, and this one being the RAZR HD, and there's also the RAZR Max HD, which has a larger battery capacity and a little bit more storage to it. So we'll look at some of the hardware specs on the RAZR HD. It's got a 4.7-inch Super AMOLED HD display, and it's got 312 pixels per inch, which is actually better than the Galaxy S3 and the iPhone 5. It's got Gorilla Glass on the front, and on the back is that Kevlar coating, which is, it's got a nice grip to it. So in the hand, it's not a slippery surface, and as well as that if you have it just sitting on a desk, then that Kevlar has got a nice kind of non-skid grip kind of feel to it. If you remember from last year, the actual original RAZR was very, very thin, but then had a kind of a hump on the back, and I even made a comment on a review that it kind of looked like a Texas Instruments calculator. The hump is still there, but as you can see, it's very subtle, so it's as if they took all the components that were in that and just distributed it along the device a little bit, rather than have it be thin and then compromised with that hump up at the top. So you still can feel it. If you're up near the top, you can feel that it's got that little bit of a rise to it, but not a lot. So it's still very thin and feels good in the hand. Now, I will say that the shape of it, of course, in that typical Motorola fashion, that it's got that more of a square look, and I'll show as a comparison with my Galaxy Nexus, is that if you look on the back, that the roundedness on the back of the Nexus, and then see the square part on the RAZR, and so that these devices really are almost identical, if not identical, in their thickness. However, because of that rounded back on the Nexus versus on the RAZR, this actually feels smaller in the hand than does this. It's amazing how that just having those, even though that they're rounded, it's a little bit rounded, that it being more squarish in the hand gives that perception. I've handed it to people and say, which one do you think feels wider? And they think that the RAZR HD actually feels wider when they're indeed the same width. So just wanted to show that little comparison. It's not a big deal. The more that I've handled this in the time that I've reviewed it, I really like the feel of it. And in the pocket, it's no more noticeable than having my Galaxy Nexus in my pocket. So because of the weight is roughly the same as well. But just wanted to point out that subtle little difference of when the device is a little bit more squarish than having that rounded corners. As long as we're talking about things on the side as well, I'll point out that right here is where the SIM card goes, as well as the SD card. There's actually a little hole, and there's a tool that comes with it that allows you to pop this on out and then be able to get to the card. So it's not just like a push it and it ejects out. So some people might consider that a disadvantage, but I think it's nice that it's secure in there. You know, you're not going to accidentally have your card get ejected or even your SIM card have any issues either way. So there is the little tool, and if you need to, then you could actually just use a paper clip and stick it in that hole and you'd be fine as well. Then you see there's where the micro USB charging port is, and then there's the HDMI slot right next to it. So again, that's over on the lower left-hand side. Nothing on the bottom. And on this side, I do want to point out that the power button has a nice texture to it. It's kind of hard to see it. Yeah, get a little closer, and it almost reminds you of like a fingernail file. So it's got a nice texture to it, and then the rocker for the volume, so that when you go to reach with your finger, you definitely know where the power button is. You can feel that, and I like that, having that textured part on there, because you definitely know when you're making contact with the button. Just a little subtle thing. And up on the top, then there is the audio jack. So that is a look at, and of course on the back there's the HD camera. That's an 8 megapixel camera on the back, and on the front is a 1.3 megapixel camera. A couple other things. It is a non-removable battery on this device. It has a 2530 milliamp battery, which is a pretty good size considering how thin that it is. So they do tout on the advertisement for this that these devices should be able to run all day. I have, during my testing, been running it quite a bit, and the battery life is really decent. Let's see, I'm still showing, actually I need to unlock here and show on the circle, that I'm at 93%. But to be honest, I did charge it a little bit earlier, but I really have been running through it, and it still holds battery charge quite well. Over the past couple of days, I'd use it through the entire day and not charge it like I normally do my devices, and there was still 60–70% battery. So I was very impressed with the battery life. It has 16 gigabytes of internal storage, 12 of them are available, and then a gig of RAM. Now you can do on the SD card, you can do up to 32 gigabytes. So that's nice that you can get that added capacity. Some phones are not having the external storage now. This one does offer you that opportunity. So if it's something you're desiring in a phone, something to keep in mind with the RAZR HD. And I think that might, oh, I know I wanted to talk about the speaker. So the speaker on this is right here on the back, and that is a fairly loud speaker on this device. As compared side by side when I would be playing a identical song or video between this and my Galaxy Nexus, it smokes my Nexus in volume, much larger than that. Now there might be other devices out there by comparison that someone would say, oh, I don't think it's that loud as compared to XYZ device. But I will say that personally, my having the Galaxy Nexus and comparing side by side, the volume wise, that the RAZR HD has definitely got a louder volume out of the speaker, which is nice. The device also has a water resistant coating on it. It's a nano coating, so then they basically have just coated the entire device, and they say that it will resist against spills. Now that is spills, not necessarily submersion. So drop this in the toilet, drop it in a pool, etc. Not going to guarantee that that nano coating is going to protect you, because there's still going to be nooks and crannies to where water could get on in. It's just that if the device did happen to have, be it a cup of coffee or a drink spilled onto it, then it's going to resist it as long as that you can get the thing wiped off quick enough, then hopefully you wouldn't be suffering any water damage. So now let's go ahead and we're going to power it up and just talk about some of the software. This is the main screen. If I swipe on over to the left, then what is here is quick settings. As it appears, I don't see a way to be able to change this, so that it's not like that you could have a custom screen over there to the left. You swipe to the left, you've got your quick settings, and that's what you've got. I'm not really sure if I'm fond of that or not. Perhaps it would just take getting used to, and then after a while you'd be like, you know what, I love that I can just be able to jump to these things versus having to pull down on the notification curtain some devices to be able to get to settings, etc. Then you can just be able to get to there. If you need to get to drill down into more settings, then down the bottom go to all settings. So in a way, now the more that I talk about it and think about it, that perhaps that's not such a bad thing. It's just that I'm used to having on my device, there is things that I have on the screen to the left, should I say, that I've always had there on all my devices, and so that to not have that option because the settings screen is in the way at first was disturbing, but I could get around to that. Now over to the right, then there's one extra panel that was blank. I just put on a Drive Smart widget, and that's all that I've got on here right now. And then otherwise, if you want to add a page, then you can add a blank page or start with a template. There's a couple of preset templates for you to use that would guide a basic user that's not used to an Android device, so just give some suggestions of what they could have for a template. And what I can also do is that if I tap the home screen, the home key, then there's a chance right from there for me to do the same thing and to add a page or to start with a template. So I'll show you that there's a media one, mobile office, and actually that was it. Oh, it's just those two. I thought there were more. So I'll just cancel out of that. Now I will say that I do like the fact that it starts with a minimalist kind of approach with the number of screens. I never really cared on HTC Sense that they'd start with 5 or even 7 home screens. I just consider that too much. I love the fact that Android has the capability for you to have widgets and to customize these home screens and for it to be more than just this Apple-like linear bunch of apps just sitting there. But at the same time, on my stock Android, on the Galaxy Nexus, then I have the home screen, then there's my screen to the left as I talked that I like having, and then there's screen number 2 to the left. Now going to the right, there's screen number 1 and screen number 2. You can see screen number 2 to the right, I've not even got anything there currently. Because as it comes down to it, then I've got on here what I want. I've even, in this case, filled in and put in a widget that I didn't even really want on that other screen. I would love it if I just had 3. I would prefer 3. So coming back on over to the RAZR Max, I'm sorry, the RAZR HD, that I would keep it as this and maybe add a 3rd screen so that there'd be now another blank screen, and then put my widgets and have them just be on those 3 screens. And then of course, since this can't be changed, then I would just have the settings menu. So I do like that fact that it starts with that minimalist kind of thing and allows for you to add them as needed, so that you can add as many home screens as you want. If that floats your boat that you want to have 7 or 9 or 11, however many screens you want to have. I'm not sure if there's a limit, but nonetheless, I like that it starts simple and then allows you to build from there. I can't do a review on a Verizon device without bragging about the awesome LTE speed of Verizon. So I'm going to just jump over to the results here for a moment just to show you that I got a 31 megabits down speed and a 14 megabits upload speed, and I ran it twice and it looks like the second time that it was even a little bit faster. I got 31.38 and 1905 upload. I'll add that I also did a test on my home cable broadband and I had 10 megabits down and 1 megabit up. So paltry as compared to the Verizon LTE connection. All right, I want to talk about one of the Verizon apps that's on here. I'm just going to go out here to the main app tray so that you can see the applications that are on here. And I've installed a couple of apps on here, otherwise then this is by and large what comes on the device. You can see that one of the first ones that shows up, it says apps. Now, the downside to this, as I consider, is that on the second page, way further down, is the Play Store. So that is where Google Play, that is where Android apps are located. Now they're located in other places as well. You can get Android apps on the Amazon market. And I think that's the Achilles heel to Android, is the fact that there's so many places that you can end up getting apps, whereas really, truly for an iOS user, there's one place. It's the App Store. And this just adds confusion if you ask me. It's great that the app gives you recommended apps, says new apps, top sellers, top downloads, etc., and offers those to people, but at the same time it dilutes the attention that should be given to Google Play, to the Play Store, to where you find things. And not to take away what this app is trying to do, but at the same time you can see how it dilutes so that people don't really know where in the world they're going for their apps. Are they going to Amazon? Are they going to this apps icon? Are they going to Google Play? And it'd be nice if it was a little bit more consolidated, not to have that confusion. So let's talk about the performance of the device here from a software standpoint. It's very responsive, very snappy. When you go to do whatever you do on the device, the response of everything is very nice and crisp. Now, that said, this is actually running Ice Cream Sandwich, Android 4.0. And that leads me to one of the cons for the devices, I would say, is just the fact that it's a shame that Motorola Mobility, a company owned by Google, and the device is released to the market with what is now considered an outdated OS. This device should have come out with Jelly Bean on it. They say that Jelly Bean will be coming out on it soon, and not to say I don't want to belittle Ice Cream Sandwich, it's just that there's been significant improvements with Jelly Bean, and they're not enjoyed on this device right out of the box. Instead, a person has to purchase it and know that the promise is, hey, that's coming soon. And that would be Jelly Bean version 4.1, and we're already seeing devices with 4.2 being available. I know that's also part of the quandary that is Android as well, is that there's always something new coming on out and it's hard to keep up with it. But that said, this is still a very snappy device, even though that it is running Ice Cream Sandwich versus Jelly Bean. It's very fast, very responsive, and that is very impressive. Now, there are quite a few apps that can't be uninstalled on the device, so I consider that somewhat of a con. Most people aren't really going to mind that, but knowing that there's 16 gigs of storage, 12 of them being available for a user to use, and that there's NFL Mobile, Amazon Color, Modern Combat 3, My Verizon, Quick Office, Real Racing 2, Slacker Radio, Verizon Tones, Verizon Video, Verizon Voicemail, and Verizon Navigator, those are apps that cannot be removed off of the device, and they're taking up space if you don't want to use them. Too bad, so sad. They're installed on there. You have to deal with them. So the bottom line on the Droid RAZR HD, I give it a thumbs up. While I did point out some minor things with build quality and whatnot, that I really was just comparing that to Apple. I think it's nice, it's thin, it's a good weight, there's a lot of great features to it, the screen really is gorgeous, battery life is very impressive, and once this has Jelly Bean and someone is able to enjoy the latest and greatest that Google has to offer, this is really a very impressive device. $199 on Verizon on a 2-year contract. So for $200, getting one heck of a phone. This is Matt Coddington with My Mobileville. Have a good day.